Welcome to Dawg Day Afternoon, your home for free NBA playoff picks, Major League Baseball picks, and best bets for Wednesday, April 20th of 2022. I am Gilles Gallant with FTNBets on a show powered not by 420 Smoke, but by the FTN Network. And I'm joined as always by Daquan Young, producer extraordinaire of Dawg Day Afternoon. Daquan, I don't know if you've been following to see what happened to me last night. I had probably the worst beat of 2022. And I'll put it up against anybody. I feel like this is a terrible, terrible beat. I had Devin Booker over 36.5 points, rebounds, and assists. And I'm not sure if you caught that Suns-Pelicans game last night, but Booker was just on fire in the first half. 31 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist. Like, pretty much just needed one more basket to get this over. I was so confident. Like, I was like, I was talking smack, like on Twitter, being like, is Devin Booker like the best offensive player in the game? Like, hey, he's got 34 points at halftime. Is that good? Like, that kind of stuff.
Fun, yeah.
And like, I was so confident. I was this close to tweeting out the recap tweet to be like, well, this is in. Didn't want to tempt fate. What happens? He pulls his hammy 3 minutes into the third quarter. I lose my bet. I'm furious. Like, I go to bed, like, I'm just like, I had a bad dream about it. Like, it was just that kind of loss. I'm over it now, but still it's still stewing in me. But I just wanted to know now, with Devin Booker getting hurt, I wanted to know what your thoughts were about the Phoenix Suns going forward, specifically when it comes to the series against the Pelicans. And do you think they could still win the NBA championship?
I don't think they can win the championship. I know Book is a real big part of their team. And just to speak about, like, I saw a lot of people high stepping into the end zone at halftime. It was like, Book's going for 50, Book's going for 60. I think I saw Ian. He was on the show a couple weeks ago talking about, putting down a bet, 50, Devin Booker get 50 at like plus 330 or something like that I saw. But I think they're not a championship team without him. I think he kind of drives the offense, and he's the guy that, in the playoffs, it's about defense, it's about rebounding, and it's about, who's going to score in the fourth quarter. And I think you got CP3, but I don't think CP3 is as consistent as Devin Booker is. So you got to worry about that hamstring down the line. If it's a tweak, it's going to linger. And, I've had hamstring issues. I know a lot of athletes who have hamstring issues that, it never really goes away unless you fully rest it. So, thinking about the NBA finals is over the course of the next couple of months, or not even a couple of months, couple of weeks. He's going to be playing on it. He's going to be running up and down the court full speed. So there's a possibility that it does come back. And, with him not on the floor, it may bite you. It may not bite you against the Pelicans or in the next series, but the way Golden State looks and the way that they're playing, which I think that's going to be the Western Conference Finals matchup, you would hope that he can get to that series fully healthy. So you would want the Suns to go out and kind of make light work of the Pelicans, which they didn't get an opportunity to win that game last night, which the sooner they can go 4-0, 4-1 to get teams out of there, the more rest they can get. So you're hoping that over the course of the next series and this one, they can kind of close it out early so he can get his rest.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I don't think they can win the NBA championship without Booker. I don't think that's really a hot take by us to think that. But I do think they could still get by the Pelicans, but I think they're forced to. They have to rest him the remainder of the series, unless they're down like 3-1 or something and he thinks he can go. You know what I mean? Try it out at that point where you've exhausted all other options. But until then, you have to just go under the understanding, at least with the Suns, is that it's going to be a tough series. This series is now probably going to go 6 games at least, I think, without Booker. So it's very interesting. The NBA championship futures have completely shifted as a result of this injury. So it's very interesting to see where this goes. Now, for transparency purposes, Quan, we're 10 shows in. This is the 11th show with us together. We're 16-17. Not exactly a winning record, but we are still positive at plus 1.6 units. We just had a really bad show last week or last Friday, at least specifically me, just got pretty much reverse swept. And here's the deal, though. Can't really have a bounce back without a losing day. It's science. I don't make the rules. So, and I got a positive mindset coming into the show. And you want to know why? We got our man Benny Ricciardi from FTNBets coming on the show in the second half. It's his Dawg Day Afternoon debut. I've been trying to nail him down for a few months. Finally got him down. I can always count on him to bring some value picks, especially just angles that I wasn't considering. And he's got 3 NBA playoff picks tonight that he's going to share in the second half of the show. Now, before we get started with my picks for tonight's NBA playoff games, I wanted to remind everybody that all my picks today are brought to you and bet on at Caesars Sports. And if Caesars is available in your state and you haven't signed up yet, now is the perfect time. Use the promo code up on the screen, FTNBets Caesar, and Caesar will give you a $1,100 free bet just for signing up, risk-free. If you already have a sportsbook account with another spot, get another one, because to me, the way I look at it from how do you win long-term is you got to have multiple sportsbook accounts because it's essential for line shopping and for prop betting. It's something I do every day to get the best odds, and consistently, Caesars has been my go-to for finding the best plus money options. Sign up now today with Caesars Sportsbook. All right, we're going to give out our 3 picks. We're going to get kicked off here with the Omega pick. We're going to start with the Nets-Celtics matchup, Quan. And a lot of people who were following me asked me if I was going to play Kevin Durant points, rebounds, and assists, or if I was going to look at Kyrie threes. And while I commend anyone who bets those and cashes with them tonight, those props have been adjusted so much, I got to go off the beaten path. So we're going with Seth Curry over 11.5 points tonight at -115. And I know a lot of people, they'll look at the way that game 1 went and also just that play-in game where Seth just didn't look very involved. Even though he was playing lots of minutes, just wasn't getting a lot of shots because KD and Kyrie were getting a lot more usage rate. And he may not be an all-star or, his brother, but he does get buckets quite regularly. Like in 19 games with Brooklyn, he scored 12 points in 13 of them. And I think with Kyrie and KD getting so much attention, that it's actually going to benefit Seth being able to get a little bit more open looks. If you look at Curry's playoff history, for example, 12 points seems very doable in this offense, even against the Celtics, who are a pretty good defensive team. Over the last 3 seasons, if you include just game 1 versus the Celtics, he's played 19 playoff games in that time, and he had 12 or more points in 14 of them. So it's not like he's just coming to Brooklyn and just assuming a new role, right? Like he did this with Philly, he did this with Dallas. And I feel like this is a fair number to bet because we're not asking Curry to like go ham and go insane and just be an alpha and put up 30 at the Garden. We're just asking him to just make a couple shots. He's playing over 30 minutes a game in this offense. He averaged 15 points per game during the year, 18 points in 5 games against Boston this season is what he's averaging. So give me Curry to score 12 points tonight in Beantown.
I think that's a great call, man. In the playoff, we're talking about playoff basketball. We're talking about, guys who need to step up, and it's about role players making shots. Seth Curry, he has a pretty good brother over there in Golden State, and I think, he's shown up throughout the course of, the playoffs. I think it was in Dallas last year. He had a pretty good playoff. The Celtics are going to want to stop Kyrie and Durant from doing,
which is easier said than done.
Way easier said than done. So
yeah,
he's going to get his looks. He's going to get his opportunities. I think it's a really good play. 12 points. It doesn't seem like that much, but once again, it's the playoffs. You got those guys on the road who make shots and those guys on the roads who don't make shots. But I think Seth Curry tonight, I like this call. I like this pick. I said it before the show. 4 threes. That's it. And it doesn't even have to be 4 threes. You said he was -200 and making 2. So we're halfway there on the probability.
Yeah, like right now, if you're looking at just like milestone 3-point odds, it's like -200, -220, depending on the book for him just to get 2. For 3, he's sitting there at plus money. And I know a lot of people will gravitate towards that because that is the majority of the shots that he takes. If you look at the chart and just see that it's close to like 55 to 60% of all of the shots come from 3-point range. But he's still pretty good shooting in the mid-range as well. It's close to 50%. I just think there's going to be a lot more opportunities for him to be able to shoot tonight because I think so much attention is going to be shifted on KD and Kyrie, especially from this defensive team. And I think the one thing that I would just put as a disclaimer is some people were saying, well, are you sure you want to take it? He looks so bad in like the last 2 games. It's like, okay, like I'll give you that. But we can't just think, okay, he's just never going to score again. He's just never going to be good again. Like this is a professional NBA player. He's going to be able to get points up. I think 11.5 is a very reasonable, fair number. So I think 12 points. I think we can ride with that. If we're going to start talking about 3+ 3-pointers or 20+ points. Yeah, I'm not willing to go that far, but I think 12 is more than fine.
Listen, man.
All right, let's move on. Yeah, shoot or shoot, man. And speaking of that, we're going to move on to the second pick now. We're going to the Toronto Raptors and Sixers game. And this is a very popular pick. I'm a little uneasy about it because I've seen so many people on this prop tonight. But, I mean, even coming in, I was trying to ignore the noise of what other people are doing and just kind of looking at the matchup. So we're going to take OG Anunoby, and we're going to have him score 20 or more points tonight against the Sixers at home at plus 155. Now, he scored 20 or more points in both playoff games so far against the Sixers. He scored 20 on them in his lone regular season game against the Sixers as well. Now, Scotty Barnes hasn't been officially ruled out, but he is doubtful to play tonight. I highly doubt we'll see him in this game. So that should allow OG to be more of a primary focal point on the wing. In 7 games without Scotty Barnes, Anunoby has scored 20 or more in each of them. Now, also another thing, Quan, playing in Toronto can't be overlooked for why we're looking at OG tonight, because the Sixers' best wing defender, Matisse Thybulle, he's going to be out tonight due to COVID restrictions. So, and in games where Thybulle didn't play this season, opposing forwards had an increased field goal percentage, and the Sixers' defense allowed more points per game. So I think those directly correlate. Now, it's not technically a lose or go home matchup for the Raptors, but they're 0-2 in the series. If they go down 0-3, probability says they're probably not going to win the series. So this game is in, I don't want to call it the must-win scenario, but it is close to that. So I trust OG to unload the clip. He's going to take at least 15 shots tonight, and he's going to get us 20 points in game 3 versus the Sixers.
And I agree with you. Like, I stress it as a must win because, you know, typically you say you go down 3-0, you go down 0-3, you're not coming back. So, you know, finding spots for OG to get involved in the game. He had 26 the last game, 20 in game 1. It's going to be him without Scotty Barnes out there. You know, I think there's more opportunity, you know, for him to get involved in the offense. And I think the great point was that Matisse Thybulle, you know, because of COVID restrictions, isn't playing. So, yeah, I like the call, man. I don't know if the Raptors are going to pull it off. I think that.
Well, right now they're sitting as home underdogs. Right now it's about plus 1.5. You know, you can get them at like plus 110, plus 105 to win outright. In fact, I would actually argue the flip side. I think you're getting pretty good value on a Sixers team right now, even though, you know, obviously Matisse Thybulle, he doesn't always match up with OG when they're playing against each other, at least on the perimeter. But still, it's just one less perimeter defender to be able to close out on a guy like OG who could get open for a 3. You know, I just think 20 points is doable. I'm not asking them to go off for 30. I'm not asking the Raptors to win the game. I'm just asking OG to score 2 more points than he did, 2 more points that he scored during the regular season. So, again, feeling like we're maybe going on a little bit more of a safer route, even though the odds for this are plus 155. And I've been tracking it all morning. It actually opened at plus 115. I was kind of just looking at it, considering it for the show, and then I saw it keep going up to plus 155. I was like, all right, this is too much. I don't care about the reverse line movement, even the fact that other people are on it. This is too much value. I have to take this at this stage because I was in more of a fade mode when it was getting closer to like plus 110. Yeah. All right, let's now move on to the alpha pick. This one's even bigger odds than the last one, Quan. You probably would wonder why I made this the alpha pick, but this is just how confident I feel in it. I feel really good about it. We're going with Jrue Holiday double-double at plus 330 tonight against the Bulls. And I'm going to probably get crushed for taking this pick because of the odds. So if you're hesitant, I would just say take a look at Drew's points, rebounds, and assists. It's sitting there at 31.5 at minus 115 on each side. I think that's a fair price. But for anyone who knows me, like, I love to live dangerously. You know that I'm going to go off for the plus money. And Holiday, he showed flashes of his playoff self in game 1. He played 39 minutes. And the reason why I bring that up is that was crucial to me about where the Bucks are and the way that we need Jrue to likely play for this to cash. Because if you just look at last year's playoffs on the run to their championship win, like, he averaged just under 40 minutes a game, 39.7, led the team in minutes per game. His assist and rebound numbers from the regular season to the playoffs went up compared to the regular season. He averaged 9 assists in 23 playoff games last year, just under 7 rebounds. And I think this bodes well for a potential double-double because the Bulls have low-key been getting torched by opposing guards. If you look at the splits just since the All-Star game, so it's the Bulls' last 23 games, they rank bottom 5 in points, rebounds, and assists to opposing guards. And then also, like this, I'm not just cherry picking splits, right? Like you can go look at it through the last 30, the last 14. They rank the same for those same splits, bottom 5 in points, rebounds, and assists to opposing guards. So for me, I love the value because the Bulls just really have no answer for Giannis. And I think Drew could rack up, 5 to 6 assists just on transition baskets over the top to Giannis running the floor. So give me Drew Holiday double-double at plus 330. However, like I said, from a disclaimer standpoint, if this is too much juice and if you're just not feeling it, take the over 31.5 points, rebounds, and assists. And for me, I think that might be a little bit better of an alternative for a little bit more of a safer avenue, just because I'm looking at this double-double price at plus 330. I feel like based on what the Bulls do and how involved Drew is in the offense and how he's basically leading the ball up the court every time, like this should be closer to plus 220, plus 210 from an implied probability standpoint.
I like the call. No Lonzo makes this Bulls team a different team. That's all I got to say about it. Double-double. I think he could get it off assists, maybe even rebounds too.
I mean, he's gotten a couple double-doubles this year off of rebounds, but it's been mainly assists. And then, of course, if you just look at the playoff pedigree of the way that the Bucks were when they're fully rostered and how they were playing last year, and just the way that Mike Budenholzer uses this offense, Drew was putting up double-doubles against the Phoenix Suns defense, and the Bulls is nowhere near this Suns defense. The only concern for a double-double prop is the potential of a blowout, because you're looking right now between Bucks and Bulls. Bucks are sitting as 10-point favorites. I know some people have been whispering to me about maybe taking the Bulls like as a plus 450 money line. I don't have the balls to do that, but I'm just saying that there is a potential for a blowout of what could ruin a double-double prop. But I'm willing to take the risk at plus 330.
There we go.
All right, we're going to move on to the second half of the show now. So those are my 3 picks. We got Seth Curry over at 11.5 points. We've got OG to score 20 or more at plus 155, and we're taking a double-double for Drew Holiday at plus 330. So those are my 3 picks. We're going to bring Benny Ricciardi on for the second half of the show. He's going to share his best bets for the NBA playoffs tonight. Stay tuned. Be back in a minute. Welcome back to Dawg Day Afternoon. I'm joined now by Benny Ricciardi of FTNBets, one of the most elusive people that I've ever spoken to, because I've been trying to get him on the show for a couple months now, and I finally nailed him down. One of the sharpest handicappers I know as well. Privileged to have him on the show. Benny, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, man. You know how it is. There's a million other things going on in the background that we had to get done and all that stuff. So I've been trying to come on for the last couple months too. But finally we get together to talk a little basketball. So this should be fun.
Well, and I think that's the one thing I wanted to kind of allude to is you're doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see that help bring FTN and its entire network up from the ground up. And before we get started with the picks, Benny, I wanted to get your take on the Phoenix Suns. Obviously, Devin Booker pulling his hamstring last night. That is a big monkey wrench into a lot of people's plans who probably had Suns futures. You probably saw Suns futures adjust across the board at a lot of different books. I wanted to ask you now, with the books kind of looking at maybe the Warriors now being closer to a favorite at plus 350 and the Suns around plus 325, plus 350, depending on the book. I wanted to know, do you still feel that maybe there's some value in grabbing the Suns now, or do you think they're too vulnerable at this point to win the NBA Finals?
Well, listen, the thing about them is obviously losing Booker loses a big scorer that they had on that team. But this team was also one of the best defensive teams in the league. You still have some other guys that could score on this team that could put up points that are just going to have to play a little bit of a bigger role. And that's one of the things we love about Chris Paul, right? Throughout his career, Chris Paul could be a 30-point-a-game kind of guy if he really wanted to. But he's better off helping everybody else on his team get their shots and get everything up for them. So can Phoenix still do it? Yeah. If you like Phoenix, you're obviously getting better odds on them today than you were yesterday. But is there chances without Devin Booker, still there? I think they could still win it without Devin Booker, but I think it would have obviously been a lot easier for them to win it with Devin Booker. I would rather be taking the Phoenix Suns right now than the Golden State Warriors at the lower price that they are today after the injury. So if I have to pick between one of those two, the Phoenix Suns would be where I put my money. With that being said, I don't know if I really want to take them though at plus 325 right now, somewhere around there. Yeah.
I mean, it's not the best value, but the fact entering game 2, they were like plus 250 at best.
Right. Like that's what I'm saying is you're getting a much better price than you were, 48 hours ago on them if you still think they could do it. We also don't know. Did they say Devin Booker is going to be out for the entire thing? I mean, I didn't read anything.
It's still so preliminary, Benny. I think we can both probably agree that even if it was like a slight tweak, he's probably out for the remainder of this series at least. I think the big thing more red flag for me, if we're just looking at the series and specifically game 2, is the absence or even just the fact that I could barely even find DeAndre Ayton on the court. Like he only put up 10 points last night, and in a matchup where, I mean, he should just eat up Jonas and Jackson Hayes like it's nothing. And last year he was a playoff darling, especially people taking like his over points and over rebounds. And maybe the Suns are onto something of why they didn't give him an extension, because in game 2 he was a no-show, and that's a red flag for me going forward. So,
well, we also have to see how they're going to play going forward now too, because without Booker, there's going to be a lot more of that pick and roll up at the top with, Chris Paul and him kind of running it there. And again, it's not, DeAndre Ayton has a good offensive game, but obviously if you can get, put in good situations in a pick and roll where Chris Paul can kind of lay it up there to you on the roll to the rim or get it to you on a nice bounce pass, depending on what the angle that's open for him is, that could wind up happening as well. Like I said, other guys are going to have to step up. So I still think they can get through the series without him. We'll have to see what happens when they get a little deeper into the playoffs though.
For sure. Yeah. So let's look at tonight's action. We're going to look at Nets Celtics, which I don't think is a hot take to say it's the main event tonight. A lot of people like myself gravitating to the player props. Not sure if you heard it the first part of the show, but I got Curry over 11.5 points. But you've got an angle for the Celtics offense tonight. How are you betting game 2 between Nets and Celtics?
Yeah, so I actually did this in game 1 as well. I took over 115.5, which is the team total for the Boston Celtics. So you don't even care what happens with the Nets here. You're just looking at the team total for the Celtics. And the reason why I did it is the last 3 games that these two teams have played, the Celtics have scored 126, 129, and 126 going into game 1, right? So you're looking at them being 10 or 11 points above what that number is. Now, in game 1, they were on pace to get over that 115 and cash that bet for us. And then in the fourth quarter, they came out and had a 5+ minute drought to start the fourth quarter where they didn't even get a basket there. And even with that 5+ minute drought they had to start the fourth quarter, on that spinning layup by Jason Tatum at the end there, they got to 115, which put us half a point below the number that we needed. Now, all they had to do was score 1 bucket during that 5-minute drought there, and we would have been over. In all honesty, the team has averaged like 2.5, 2.7 points per minute. So really, we should have got about an extra 10 points out of them in that 5-minute drought there, which would have put them at that 126 number that they have had the last couple times that these two teams played. So the Brooklyn Nets this year were 21st in the league for opponents' points per 100 possession allowed. They gave up 113.6 points per 100 possessions. This is a bad defensive team to begin with. And then you put a pretty good offensive team in the Boston Celtics on the other side in an up-tempo, up-pace kind of game. And remember, most of the season they played without Kyrie Irving. And one of the things we know about Kyrie Irving too, he's not exactly a positive to your defense when you're out there. So those numbers actually could have been worse if he was out there on the floor for the entire season. And also he's a positive to the pace, which means more possessions as they start playing faster. So I think there's a lot of things that point to the Celtics going over that 115.5. And for those of you who want to take on a little more risk here, I don't even think it's crazy to go 119.5, which over on BetMGM, you could get right now at like plus 170, I think, or plus 175, if you're looking to get a little more juiced up on the payout. But I like the over 115.5 team total for the Boston Celtics today.
What an angle. Laddering team totals. That's interesting. All right. Usually you see like people just laddering like 3-point props or, points, milestone props. I like the idea of laddering a team total. That's actually pretty cool. Yeah. So right now, before we go, like Celtics right now, minus 160 right now is a home favorite. Nets are plus 140 on the money line, minus 3.5 for the Celtics. Over under is sitting there at 226. If I had to pick, I mean, I'm probably going to take the Nets money line, but at the same time, and not to say that I really get skewed when books release their splits, because I think everybody is going to be betting Nets money line or spread likely in this matchup. But just on the surface, it's almost like difficult to pick against Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. So I could see why a lot of people would be leaning towards the Nets money line in that matchup. Okay, now we're going to move on to the second game of the night, and it is the Philadelphia 76ers up in the 6 playing the Toronto Raptors. Sixers are actually road favorites, minus 1.5, sitting at minus 125 for the money line, while the Raptors are sitting as home dogs at plus 105 to the money line with an over-under at 216.5. Now the Raptors, they may have cut it close in the fourth quarter in game 2, and they're my team, so I'm just going to be realistic. The Sixers dominated both of those games. Joel Embiid, even though he didn't put up his customary like 30 and 15 in game 1 or game, like he still looked like the most dominant player on the floor. I ended up settling on OG Anunoby for 20 or more points. But you're looking at a Sixers swingman to also continue racking up the points. What do you got for us, Benny?
Yeah, well, one of the things I've noticed about the way that Toronto was trying to defend Philly, and again, it's not a crazy thing to do, and we saw this in game 1 as well. They're trying to take the ball out of the hands of James Harden and Joel Embiid, which again makes perfect sense. You don't want two of the best players in all of basketball to be the guys that are, destroying you. You want to make the other guys kind of beat you. Well, in game 1, you got 38, almost 40 points out of Tyrese Maxey because they were letting him kind of get the open shots and have some of the driving lanes while they were concentrating on the big two. The other guy who really had a big game was Tobias Harris, who had 26 in that first game. Now, in the second game, they did it a little less with a little less of the double teaming and trying to get the ball out of those guys' hands. But you still had big games for those, ancillary pieces as well. You had another 23 from Maxey. You had another 20 points out of Tobias Harris. And the thing that I noticed about it is the minutes that these guys are playing. Yeah. Tobias Harris played 37 minutes in game 1. He played 39 minutes in game 2. So he's averaging 38 minutes for the series. Throughout the season, he averaged about 34 minutes. Now, throughout the season, he also averaged 17.6 points. Now, again, that number dropped a little bit in the games that Embiid played and the games that Harden was there at the end of the season. But, this is still a guy, Tobias Harris, who was considered one of the quote-unquote big three when it was him and Jimmy and Joel Embiid and, all those guys that were in there. This guy can play. He can score. He's been on fire from three-point land, but he's been on fire because he's been wide open because his man keeps going to double down on Embiid or going to help out Harden. So he's been getting a lot of those open shots there. He averaged 17.6 points during the year. He's playing 10% more minutes now than he did during the season. So if you give an extra 10% boost to that 17.6, you get like 19.5. Now, again, you got to cut that a little bit because of what's going on with Harden and everybody being healthy and all that. But that's still way above the 15.5 that the books are offering. And the other thing I like about this on FanDuel here today, this is actually juiced down to minus 102. This same bet is minus 110, minus 115, minus 120 on the other books that are out there in the market. So we're getting a lower number than I think it should be, and we're getting it at a better price than I think it should be. So when you put those two things together, I think there's a lot of value on Tobias Harris over 15.5.
Line shopping 101 right there from Benny. No, I'm with you, man. I think so. In game 1, I kind of took the same approach. I actually had Tobias 20 plus points and 2 plus threes, and it was like paying like plus 320. It was like nice. So it was great. I hit it, but at the same time, I was actually really shocked that it happened because if you looked at some of the game logs of them matching up together, the Raptors and Sixers, because of the way the Raptors play and how many forwards they have, and basically it's just a group of 6'8" guys and Fred VanVleet playing. It was a little bit of a struggle I found for him during the regular season. But you are right about one thing is that ever since that Harden trade, the big thing about Tobias specifically is they have a lack of depth now. Like they can't trust a guy like Shake Milton or Georges Niang or, and of course Thibault not playing tonight as well. So again, there's another swingman. So extra minutes again for Tobias, where I'm not sure that they could trust those guys to find their own shot. It's basically Harden, Maxey, and Embiid with Tobias mainly getting the runoff. And so I'm with you. I think he's going to probably play at least 35 minutes. I'd be shocked if he played less than 35. And the only reason why is foul trouble or a 40-point blowout, but even then they still have to put somebody out on the floor. And the one thing that's been good, another reason that bodes well for your how many minutes he might play, is you saw in game 2 and game 1, game 2 specifically, they were matchup hunting every time Georges Niang was on the floor. And OG was just cooking him pretty much every time they matched up. So I could see Tobias having to play a little bit more because of the lack of defense from Niang and other supporting characters like Shake Milton. Now we're going to move on to the nightcap of the game between Bulls and Bucks. Game 1 didn't even top 200 points. Both teams struggled with their shot. Bulls are sitting right now at double-digit underdogs at +10, +425 on the money line. Bucks, nobody's probably going to bet this money line, but it's -550 with an over-under of 225. I'm not really seeing many people on the Bulls to cover the spread tonight. I mean, they were awful during the regular season against top-seeded teams. It's been well documented, both spread record and win-loss record. They just did not show up when they had to play the upper echelon of teams in the NBA. So I wanted to know, Benny, how do you see this game playing out, and what is your best bet for game 2?
Yeah, so I mean, listen, it's going to be a boring analysis here, but I see it playing out with the Bucks winning. But I kind of agree with you. I think it's too many points to lay here. They played 5 times during the regular season. Now there were 2 20-point blowouts in that 5 there, so it's not that the Bucks can't beat them by 20. But the Bucks won all 5 of those games, so I don't see how the Bulls are going to turn that around. But 3 of those games did end up as like 4, 5, 6, 7-point games in there. So 10 points is kind of a lot of points here, but I do think
in
that
a playoff game too.
Yeah,
which is
that's
another thing,
100%. And, like you said, the thing that I'm really looking at here is that the Bulls offense was really bad in that first game and they really struggled. And the Chicago Bulls are one of the worst offensive rebounding teams in the league. I think they were 28th overall this season with only like a 23.4% offensive rebound rate. So the way that I'm looking to play this is to just take the Giannis rebounds here, take the over on Giannis rebounds. It opened this morning at 12.5 -110 and got absolutely hammered when it opened. So you can't even find the 12.5 anymore at like under 140 or 145 out there in the the legal sportsbook market. So I took the 13.5, which a couple sites already moved it up to. FanDuel has it at +108. There's a couple other sites that have it at even money. Even -105 is out there at the 13.5.
Right.
So Giannis in the first game, he had 8 rebounds in the first 9 minutes of the rotation that he was in there. Just basically every missed shot was just like, oh, thank you. Let's run this up the floor. That's basically what they did. He had a double-double with 9 minutes left in the second quarter of this game, like the first game that they played here today. So I think that this is just such a good spot for him in the rebounding. Now, again, he only finished with 16. So the last like 2.5 quarters of this game, he didn't have some big rebounds there. But I like him to be the guy. When they have Brook Lopez back in there on offense, Brook Lopez basically stands out on the perimeter. Giannis is going to be the guy that's in there getting the offensive rebounds at any of those misses. And then even on defense on the other side of the floor, Giannis is like the designated rebounder for this team. Shots go up and the guards just kind of start leaking because they know between Brook Lopez, who doesn't really rebound very well anyway, but he's tall and he gets in the way of other people. He allows Giannis to go and get the 10 or 12 or 13, defensive rebounds that are going to be there this game. And I do love Milwaukee's defense. I do think Chicago's going to struggle to score. And here's a fact to think about too. DeMar DeRozan is more of a mid-range kind of player. He's not a guy who you think of as a long-range shooter.
Didn't shoot well at either in game 1, 2, 6 for 25, I think was his actual finish.
And this is exactly the way Milwaukee plays defense. The guys who do well against Milwaukee tend to be the guys that can knock down the shots from 20, 25 feet away, not the guys that are in that mid-range because they're so long and they're so athletic that those are not easy shots. Now, other teams will defend the three-point line and let you have that mid-range stuff. Milwaukee's almost the opposite, where they defend inside the three, and they'll let you shoot threes. And if you knock down 60% against them, you're going to beat them because they're going to let you have those shots. So this is not a good series for a guy like DeRozan, who, like you mentioned, 6 of 25, and they have to get DeRozan shots. Otherwise, they're not going to score. So I think there's going to be a lot of those mid-range misses that turn into a lot of Giannis rebounds.
I think it's very telling as well when you look at some of the sports books and you're starting to look at Brook Lopez rebounding props. Like right now, it's plus money for over 5.5 for a starting center who's 7 feet tall in that offense against a team that probably not like they're okay from a field goal percentage standpoint, but you would think it should be closer to 6.5, maybe 7.5, just on volume alone and how many minutes he plays. But again, that's because Giannis swallows up all of these rebounds. And I'm not willing to maybe go as far as saying that he's the designated rebounder, but he just has a nose more for rebounds than Brook Lopez has ever had in his NBA career. So I'm with you on that prop. My big prop that I'm betting on this, I actually went a little bit more of a long shot. I took Drew Holiday for a double-double at plus 330 because the main thing that the Bulls struggle with, if you actually look since the All-Star break and over the last 30 days, they're bottom 5 in rebounds and assists to opposing guards. So I feel like this is kind of a spot for them where I think Drew is going to probably play at least 40 minutes. If you look at his playoff log history, he's playing at least 38 minutes in, I think, like 16 of the last 17 playoff games that he's played. So for me, that's kind of the angle that I was looking at, is that I think the Bucks are going to kind of overwhelm them. I think the only thing that's a big concern, and not even a huge concern, because I think Giannis could get this even in a blowout scenario, is the blowout scenario where if they get up by like 30 points entering the fourth quarter, I mean, we've seen what Bud does with Giannis's minutes. Even though Giannis is the best player, because he plays so hard, he won't play him over 35 minutes because he just works himself into just works himself in such a lather that he can't be used anymore in the fourth quarter. So I'm with you, man. I think that's a great bet for Giannis over 13.5 rebounds, especially being able to get that at plus money. So, all right, well, that's all for today. There's 3 picks from me, 3 picks from Benny. Now, Benny, before we go, I want you to tell the folks at home about the new podcast that we've got launched on FTN Bets and what other content you've got lined up with FTN Bets.
Yeah, so we started a podcast called the FTN Bets Cast, and basically what we're doing is going every day in the morning talking about whatever the big things that everyone wants to bet on. So today we talked a little bit of NBA action, we talked a little bit of baseball action here. You know, when we have Champions League games, we'll get some Champions League talk going. On Friday, I try to get one of the UFC guys to come on, talk a little bit of UFC action for the weekend for Saturday. Normally on Wednesdays, we have one of the PGA guys on, but today wasn't a big day, or tomorrow's not really a big day. This isn't a big week for PGA, but most weeks on Wednesday, I'll have one of the PGA guys on. They'll give us some outright stuff and, you know, maybe some of the head-to-heads that they're looking at for the week. So yeah, basically the idea behind the show is just to get all of the stuff that's going to be going on today, whether it's the NFL draft numbers just went up, or, you know, the NBA championship numbers just went up, or the series prices, whatever the big things that everyone's talking about in the betting world, we want to give you our thoughts on them, tell you what we like. And the most important thing is we line shop them all, so we tell you where you guys can get the best price on them.
And see, for me, that's a huge value first thing in the morning, is to having somebody already doing the look ahead spots for you, because sometimes, like, you know, you're just so invested in your own bets from the night before. You're not already thinking about the day ahead. So being able to have a nice digestible podcast that's probably, you know, 30 minutes, you know what I mean?
Not
to be
even.
able to just, you know, yeah, exactly.
I keep it below. I keep it below that.
That's the way we got to consume content these days, just to be able to have a little bit of coffee with our betting content, just so we have a little bit of a refresher in what we're looking for going ahead that day. So that is awesome. Make sure to subscribe to that on Apple or Spotify. That is the FTN Bets Cast. All right, now Dawg Day Afternoon, we're off for today. We're going to be back on Friday on FTN Network with another special guest and more NBA and MLB picks. Follow me on Twitter at GDawg5000. Make sure to follow Benny at BennyR11 on Twitter. I want to thank everybody for watching Dawg Day Afternoon. Bon chance.